I hope you guys are ready to laugh because I've been waiting for this moment. And it finally happened, folks. Finally, somebody called out Piers Morgan to his face. Not some, but two, actually. Piers Morgan actually got tag teamed by Cenk Uygur and Dr. Cornel West. This is interesting because I was not expecting this to come from both of them, especially like in this form. But it was very obvious to me that they have had enough. And it's funny. I was sitting there. I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually agreeing with Cenk Uygur here. Because usually, because he always be like, well, you got to support the Democratic Party, like that kind of thing. But they really did come after Piers Morgan. And I will say this as I bring this up. This is the panel. Piers Morgan is the moderator for these debates. It's his show, but he is the moderator. One of the problems that I've had with these debates is that he's basically not neutral. He's obviously on the pro-Israel side. As a moderator, you are supposed to be neutral. If Piers Morgan wants to take a side, which is fine, if he wants to do that, he needs to be a part of the debate, but not the moderator. And that is one of the problems that I've had with these debates. Well, fortunately, people called him out about it. And it gets pretty tense. They're starting off discussing a free speech debate about what's happening on the campuses. And this is when it you can tell everybody looks pissed. Like I looked at this where it's paused at, like Dr. West looks angry. Cenk Uygur looks angry. This woman here, she's going to speak too. She's also angry. I think she's somewhat conservative, but she still is, she's pro free speech. And so listen to what she says. We start with her.
Yes, but from a free speech perspective, what is your take on what we're seeing here?
So I've been very open about this issue. I think there's been not quite enough focus on the free speech issue. I think that, for example, you could look at Texas Governor Abbott, who in 2019 was saying there has to be free speech on campuses. There has to be the First Amendment on campuses. Then on March 27th, he signed something that limits speech on campus, including constitutionally protected speech, including criticism of Israel's government. I think that what the Constitution says is very, very clear that even hate speech is free speech, right? So you can debate whether something is or is not hate speech. And the debate you just had with your last guest proves that there is some disagreement on that. And the main point is the government should not be the one deciding what is and is not. We have a spokesperson for the Indiana Police Department saying hate speech isn't free speech. Well, that just simply isn't true. And it's the whole idea of what it's always been, which is that you don't want the government to be in the position of deciding what speech is and is not allowed, because that is going to be dangerous for anyone, including Jewish students, right? I mean, there was no free speech, obviously, in Hitler's Germany, right? And saying that free speech, something is First Amendment protected free speech, is not that you don't have to say you agree with it. And you can totally bring up the fact that maybe it's been less consistent in terms of all of a sudden now a lot of these university presidents are super pro free speech when it comes to this when they haven't been in the past. But to me, that's not going to cause me to be hypocritical on this issue. I'm a First Amendment absolutist. I was in 2019, I was before 2019, and I still am today.
What if you are chanting Intifada?
Okay, so she is a free speech absolutist. And with this particular issue, this is where some of the conservatives on social media and actually on YouTube are not too happy with some of the legislation that's being passed in reference to the Israel-Gaza issue, because they feel like this does disrupt free speech. So now you actually have the Biden administration has pissed off pro-Palestinian protesters, but some of the Republican governors, like Greg Abbott, has also pissed off conservative Christians. So it's happening on both sides. Somehow they've managed to piss off both sides for different reasons. But it's interesting.
Given the history of intifadas between Israel and Palestine, twice in the last 30 years, we know what intifadas have been there. They've been violent uprisings with many people dying. And what if you chant from the river to the sea, which Jewish people believe absolutely means the eradication of Israel. I'm just asking
the
Kat,
First Amendment.
I will come to everybody else, but Kat has to go. So I want to just get this free speech part of the debate out of the way. Kat.
The First Amendment is actually clear on that, where you have to have a very, very, very specific exception where that would not be allowed. So, for example, a peaceful protest where people are marching and saying from the river to the sea is constitutionally protected speech. An incident where you were targeting a specific Jewish student and chanting that at that student where a protest had become violent, then that maybe would not be. But it's very, very narrow, and it's supposed to be very, very narrow, where there has to be it has to be directed and likely to produce imminent action and also true threats. Those are the only exceptions, which are very, very narrow, and the law is clear on this.
But if you
so did everybody hear that? Okay.
Have people, and we've seen pictures of them inside and outside campus, who appear to be supporting Hamas rhetoric, who are wearing maybe insignia relating to Hamas or Hezbollah or whatever. If you're brazenly supporting organizations, groups of people that are deemed to be terrorists by large swathes of the world, does that cross the line?
This is utter nonsense, Piers. Can I just answer the question?
Okay.
And this is where it all gets crazy, folks, because Cenk is jumping in. Because you know what Piers Morgan is doing here? He's trying to sway her opinion. He's trying to get her to change her response. And that's why I said Piers Morgan, who's supposed to be the moderator of these debates, he's not actually a mod. He is pro-Israel. He's taken a side. And if you want to take a side, then you need to be a part of the debate, but you can't moderate the debate. This is, I don't know, what, the third or fourth time where I've seen Piers Morgan try to sway these panelists into saying something else that fits his narrative. She already gave you her definition of what she thinks free speech is or what it implies to be. She already told you what you can say and what you cannot say and how narrow it can be. So he comes back and again is trying to get her to say what he wants to hear. That's not a moderator. That's not the job of a moderator. So this is very problematic. So this is where Cenk comes in. And like I said, I don't usually side with Cenk, but this is where Cenk comes in to say, oh, hell no, we got to shut this down.
Yep.
You got genocide taking place. You got IDF terrorism taking place. You can't say a mumbling word about 12 universities that's been leveled to the ground. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of professors have been killed. Students have been killed. You're a journalist.
Yes.
Have you talked about the 112 journalists who have been killed, brother?
Yes, I have done.
You just spread lies.
Well, hang on. Well, Cornel, I actually... Cornel, hang on. Cornel.
You're unfair.
Cornel.
And then you just start lying. You start lying, man. It's ridiculous.
Cornel,
man.
I'm not lying about anything.
No,
you are. I agree with Cornel West completely. You're totally, utterly lying through your framing. The framing of this...
Tag team.
Sorry. Okay.
Look,
I can't hear you both speak at the same time. Cornel, just to be clear, I have posted... Sorry, hang on.
Please.
Hang on. I have posted about the journalists who've died in Gaza, right? I have posted about this. I have highlighted the deaths of those journalists, right?
Put it in the framework.
Well, I'm going to. I was going to come to you about the framework.
No, you're not.
All the vandalism about one hall, and you hardly can say a mumbling word about universities, libraries gone completely, schoolrooms gone completely. You see how truncated and narrow your framework is? You're just lying, man. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Okay. When you say lying, what you're trying to imply that I don't care about the other stuff you've just mentioned.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's not a lie.
That's definitely right.
Well,
I told you, Jonathan says, oh, damn. Tag team. I'm telling you guys, this was just because finally, Piers is in the hot seat, not the other way around. People are finally going after Piers Morgan saying, wait a minute, the way that you've been handling these discussions is problematic, Mr. Moderator. Very problematic.
not have the same value as an Israeli life. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, let me bring in Cenk. Let me bring in Cenk here. Let me bring in Cenk. Okay, let me bring in Cenk. Just to be clear, I haven't lied about anything, right? I haven't talked about what's happened in Gaza yet because we haven't come to that part of the debate. But Cenk, I don't believe you've always seemed to me to be one of the more rational voices in this debate, prepared to accept what Hamas did was horrendous and so on. I don't believe that you think it's right that Jewish students should be intimidated and harassed on a campus.
You come right back to the thing again.
Can I just answer this for
We are
God's
debating
sake?
the protests, okay?
Come on, brother. Come on, man.
I don't think it's right. They should be subjected to intimidation.
The point is that Piers Morgan's framing has always been in support of Israel. That's the problem. And if someone pointed to me and said, oh, well, Sabby, your framing has been in support of the Palestinians. Yeah, I'm also not moderating a damn debate. If you were going to be a moderator, you were supposed to be impartial. You were supposed to be neutral on an issue. You're not supposed to have a side. You're not supposed to sit up there and lead the witness. This is what he was doing to the young woman here. He was trying to lead her to say what he wanted to hear. That is not how this works. Guys, I was on the debate team in high school. That's not how moderating works. So it's problematic. Piers Morgan has an agenda. We need to look into who's funding this uncensored show that he does. Maybe nobody, but he get money from somewhere. It's not just YouTube. And then you got to think about the fact that he was on Talk TV owned by Rupert Murdoch, who also owns Fox News. There is a certain narrative that Piers Morgan is putting forward. And for Piers Morgan to sit there and say that he was not lying, he's told lies during these debates multiple times, and he's been debunked by multiple people. What do you mean you haven't been lying? How long was it before you stopped saying the beheaded babies narrative? How long was it before you stopped talking about or spreading the falsified claim from the New York Times about the essay, which had been debunked by multiple different media people? How long was it before you stopped lying, Piers? And you're still trying to lead witnesses into saying things now. You're supposed to be the moderator, but you're sitting there every time and asking people, but do you condemn Hamas? That's not moderating, Piers. You chose a side. You cannot do that and moderate these debates. Who is Piers really working for behind the scenes, folks? I don't think it's just Rupert Murdoch. I think it's someone else too. Something is happening here.
Okay, Piers.
Nobody thinks it's right. Nobody thinks that's right. It's not
Cornel,
right.
let Cenk speak and I'll come back to you.
Has a hall named after her because she and 15,000 other children have been killed by the IDF terrorists that you don't even call terrorists, but you can call the students terrorists. That's not a double standards, man. That's just outright mendacity, hiding criminality on your show, and you're supposed to be uncensored, concerned about the truth.
Well, you just said I call them terrorists. I haven't called them terrorists. That, ironically, is a lie. Cenk, I want to bring you in. You're getting very angry about this too. Just to be clear, I am...
Let me tell you how he's skirting around this issue. He said he hasn't called them terrorists. What he has done, though, is he said the students supporting Hamas, a pro-terrorist organization. So you may not actually say the words that those students are terrorists, Piers Morgan, but you are saying it in a different way when you say they're supporting a terrorist organization. That is a way of him low-key calling them terrorists.
Expressing an opinion that what has happened at Columbia has crossed a line. And that if I'm a Jewish student there, I think it's completely outrageous. I'm being intimidated and harassed for the actions of Israel's government thousands of miles away. That doesn't mean I don't have very strong views about what's happening in Gaza, because you know that I do. So where is my lie in all this?
Yeah.
The line is that you're not mentioning what's happening to those Palestinian students on those campuses. Piers Morgan isn't showing you the videos that I showed you. Piers Morgan isn't talking about how those kids had freaking firecrackers that were thrown at them from pro-Israel supporters. That's the problem, Piers. You're only talking about the victimhood in reference to those who are pro-Israel. You are not talking about that victimhood in reference to those that are Palestinian. And even when you did talk about those deaths and stuff that happened, it wasn't until over 30,000 of them have been identified as killed, then you started to raise, okay, there may be an alarm here. But prior to that, you didn't care about those babies. You didn't care about those kids. They were the wrong ethnicity for you to care about.
Piers, I've just listened to you for 20 minutes frame the issue in a purely 100% Israeli propaganda way. So if you say, hey, listen, Jewish students shouldn't be harassed or attacked, of course I agree. I've got
Jewish
family.
With me? So why have I lied?
Yeah, no. Stop interrupting. But what you don't talk about is you say from the river to the sea is an unacceptable change. Did you mention to the audience in these last 20 minutes that Benjamin Netanyahu actually said it recently? Not only that, he's actually doing it.
Let me pause here for a second. I did have to laugh at that moment because it's kind of funny that Cenk told him to be quiet on his own show.
In the middle of wiping out the Palestinians from the river to the sea. That is the grotesque violence. He has slaughtered 25,000 women and children. They were all innocent. So when Hamas kills 860 innocent Israeli civilians, I call them out and I say that is terrible. But when Israel slaughters 25,000 women and children, we're saying, oh, I don't like a pro-Palestinian chant.
Yep.
Chant. That's what we're concerned about. And now you turn to the violence that has happened on college campuses. There is one case of overwhelming violence, and that happened last night at UCLA. And it was pro-Israeli protesters that violently attacked the peace protesters that didn't do anything. They attacked an old lady and said, oh yeah, good luck trying to defend yourself, old lady. These are vicious, vigilante thugs. And they have done more violence than all of the peace protesters in the country combined. Where are the arrests? Where's the outrage? Where's the indignation? You pretend that you care about protecting students, but you only care about protecting one side, whereas the other side is assaulted.
No, I don't actually. No, because
and debased and humiliated.
Okay, let me respond.
And all you want to do is cancel their speech. You're part of cancel culture and admit it right now.
Can I respond?
I told you guys, get ready to laugh. This is juicy. This is crazy. This is juicy. But yeah, he told him, like he said, you're a part of cancel culture and admit it right now. Because yeah, where is Piers Morgan's response about what Cenk just said about the pro-Israel supporters that attacked those kids? Where's his response about that? Where's his commentary? Where's that sympathy? Oh, that's right. You don't have no sympathy for them because like I said, they're the wrong ethnicity. He don't have no sympathy for them. That's why Dr. West called him a racist. He ain't got it. It's not there. Period.
About protesting people.
Can I respond?
Americans.
Can I respond?
Americans.
By the way.
Okay, this is not the United States of Israel.
Fine.
America.
All right,
Americans
you made your point,
get to
Cenk.
protest a foreign government.
Okay, let me respond. Just to be
You've
clear.
You've lost the right wing.
Just
You've
to be
lost
clear.
the left wing. You've lost America. America's not going to stand here and let Israel
You can keep
dictate
shouting or we can
who's
have a
allowed
debate.
to speak and who's going to be arrested.
All right, you can keep shouting.
I gave you 20 minutes to do propaganda,
Okay,
Piers. Go ahead now.
It's not propaganda.
He said you lost the left wing and the right wing. I told you guys, I've seen this, like both sides are angry.
I have many views about all of this. We're talking specifically about the protests at Columbia, which I think you've crossed a line. By the way, you talk about cancel culture. I'm entitled to my view without you and Dr. West screaming liar, genocide supporter, and all this other bullshit.
Okay, you condemn the UCLA pro-Israel thugs.
As the moderator, Piers, you are not entitled to your view. That's the whole point of being the moderator. If you want to express your view, then you should be a part of the actual debate panel. So no, you're not entitled to that. You give that up when you decide to be a mod. So there's that.
Let me get clear.
You condemn them. I'm doing the same thing you are.
Wait a minute.
You condemn them.
Wait a minute.
Or are you pro-violence?
Can I answer the question? If this was Jewish students that were breaking into this building violently.
No, you don't have to go with a hypothetical.
No, sorry, I am going to go with a hypothetical because you're trying to make out that somehow I'm only doing this because I'm pro-Israel's government. I'm not pro-Israel's government. What I am pro is the safety of Jewish students being protected because they are not responsible for the actions of an Israel government.
I'm sorry, but Piers, even before the protests on the campus started, you were pro-Israel. You have been that way since this whole thing started with October 7th. Since October 7th, you have been that way. You have been pro-Israel. It's not just about the campus protests. You have always spoken from the side of condemning everything on the Palestinian side and supporting everything on the pro-Israel side. You've done that since day one as a so-called moderator.
Of miles away. They're entitled, having paid $400,000 for their education.
But you say no, you don't want to protect the peace protest.
I don't think mob rules should be allowed to go on. So when you talk about, this is a private university campus, they are entitled to not have their buildings desecrated in this manner, and they are entitled eventually to have the police remove them.
Be honest. When they were doing it in a public space, everybody in media, in American media, said, "How dare they do it in a public space? They do it in a private place." You go, "How dare they do it in a private place?"
No, you shouldn't be breaking into buildings full stop.
You know what? When Martin Luther King in Selma, Alabama.
Pause for a second, and we'll go back to the Martin Luther King thing. Excuse me. So, first of all, Piers Morgan criticized the marches. Even when people were protesting in the streets, when over 500,000 people were in DC protesting against this, he criticized the marches too. This did not start with the campus protests. And he's just pissed because Cenk Uygur, and I forgot about the other people were there for a second, but he's pissed because Cenk Uygur and Cornel West called his ass out. And it was about time. I'm glad somebody finally came onto the show and handed his ass to him. It was about time.
Across the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
Oh, let me go back to the Martin Luther King part, because this part's important. I hope it didn't go too far. Okay, there we go.
The police removed them.
Be honest. When they were doing it in a public space, everybody in media, in American media, said, "How dare they do it in a public space? They do it in a private place." You go, "How dare they do it in a private place?"
No, you shouldn't be breaking into buildings full stop.
You know what? When Martin Luther King in Selma, Alabama, crossed the Edmund Pettus Bridge, you know what they said? "How dare they interrupt the bridge? How dare they go in a public place? How dare those protesters?" Civil rights leaders should know their role, should know their place, boy. That's what people like everyone in American media is saying right now to the people in favor of not slaughtering any more Palestinians.
Yeah, I think
you guys sound exactly like Bull Connor.
Okay, Kat, I know you have to go. I just want to bring you back in just briefly.
So that part right there is incredibly important, because that's what I was telling you guys earlier about the other story. Chris Cuomo, Don Lemon, Dana Bash, all of these people are doing the same thing that they would have complained about commentators doing during the civil rights movement. The same criticism that they have. You cannot occupy a space. They would have been against the civil rights movement. They would have been against the protest to divest from apartheid South Africa. They would have been against the Vietnam War protests. It's a very revealing moment, you guys. Very revealing.
Look, this is an incredibly, as you can tell, this is a very incendiary debate, and passions run very high about this. Has anything you've just been listening to given you any more clarity about how we resolve this situation? Because presumably these protests are not going to go away. They may get bigger in number. They may affect more universities. This is a bad situation getting progressively quickly worse. What do we do about this?
Right. Again, going back to what I was saying before, I think that the law on these things is clear. I think that we want to be careful to not give up any of our rights as Americans in response to things that we see. There was also a bipartisan legislation proposed about having anti-Semitism monitors on campuses. I mean, what could go wrong there, right? And I've been open as a First Amendment absolutist, and I've had people send me videos of things like smash windows. Well, is this free speech, Kat? Obviously not, and I'm not saying that it is. I think that the robust debate surrounding this proves all the more reason why there are strong disagreements on what counts as what and what means this or what means that we should not have the government be in the position to decide ever what you can and cannot say, because any of these rules that some people are pushing for that would, some of the slogans that the Palestinian protesters are chanting, to silence any of that could then, based on what else someone else thinks, could be used to, say, prevent an IDF soldier from coming to campus to speak. So I think that there are two separate things that we need to keep: how you feel about the speech personally, how you feel about the issue personally, and then how you feel about the government involvement in it. Those are two completely separate things, and it's not the same to be pro-First Amendment and anti-Semitic.
You make some great points. Kat, we've got to let you go. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. I greatly appreciate it.
So yeah, it's a very interesting discussion. I think that she had a really good point there about the free speech portion about this. And that's what I've been trying to tell people, that they're cracking down on free speech, that they've been increasing censorship, regardless of what race you are, regardless of what class you are. You know, speech is something that all of us have, right? All of us can, you know, either speak or write or whatever. That's our way of, one of the ways that we can express ourselves. And so censoring speech and putting restrictions on speech, that's going to affect all of us. All of us. I don't care what side you're on. Maybe there can be a movement about that. Because at the end of the day, if they silence all of us, then what? And that's what it means when she says she's a free speech absolutist. She may not agree with the rhetoric that's being spoken, but she believes that people have the right to say what they want to say. And honestly, these are very, very scary times, because I don't know what else the government is going to do. I just read part of that legislation for you tonight, told you some of the things that are going to happen there. So I don't know, man. But I think this is embarrassing for the Biden administration, because something like this, what they're seeing happening right now, they would have expected something like this to happen under Donald Trump's administration, right? Because remember the protests that happened under Trump and stuff like that? They would have expected that to happen under his administration. They wouldn't have expected this to happen under Biden as well.